I'm Mariah, the wife of the revolting man, and for people who are new to the channel, welcome to my woods. Just to let you know, this is a little space where we can talk about women's stuff and also talk about religion stuff. So if you're not interested in either of those two, then you might just want to, pass on the women's stuff. But this morning I was reading in Luke, and a passage that Jesus is talking about the wise man and the foolish man building their houses. And this was really speaking to me this morning, and it led me, of course, back to the wise and foolish woman in Proverbs. So very, very, very alike in the way they're phrased, that it's got to be a connection, right? And I love seeing the connections throughout the Bible, and especially when it has to do with marriage and the metaphor, which is what marriage is all about. It's all about a reflection of the relationship between God and his people, is reflected in the relationship between husband and his wives. I don't want to go into that right now. But let's look at this. A wise woman builds her house, a foolish one tears it down. How do we build houses? How do we tear them down? What are those indicators? This leads directly into the passage in Luke, which starts out with Jesus saying, "Why do you call me Lord if you don't do what I say?" Basically, I'm paraphrasing. Whoever comes to me and hears what I say and does them, this is the man who builds his house upon a strong foundation, upon a rock foundation. The foolish man is the one that does not do what he hears Jesus telling him to do. And when the storms come, the house is destroyed. If we're thinking in the metaphor, and which is very, very, very easy to see that God wants us to think in terms of the metaphor, in terms of the husband being likened unto Christ and the wife being likened unto the church. This connection is so clear. Look at this. This is 1 Peter 3, and it talks about Sarah calling Abraham, her husband, Lord, and obeying him. Now, how is that for a direct correlation to Jesus saying, "Why do you call me Lord, but then you don't obey me?" So as wives, why do we call our husbands or our heads when we don't obey them? It makes no sense that we would say, "Yeah, you're the head of the household, but what you say is really not what I'm going to do. It's not important enough for me to actually do." I've come up with two reasons why we're guilty of this. Well, probably more than two, but two main reasons. Number one is we usually don't have a clear example of what this looks like as far as a wife reverencing and honoring her husband and being obedient to him. We don't see that in this day and age. We don't see that. We don't see that in our relationships around us, in marriages that we observe. More than likely, we didn't see that in our parents' relationship. And we definitely don't see that in what's portrayed in Hollywood and in the movies and TV shows and pop culture at large. It is so insidious. Now, I've had to go through and I get rid of children's books that show the father as being the bumbling idiot. For instance, the Berenstain Bears. I loved them when I was a kid. We had all of them, and I even loved them for my older kids. And then once I really started to realize the how deep this stuff goes into our culture, I got rid of them, because the Papa Bear is an idiot, and his kids are sometimes, his kids are almost always smarter than him. So it's just a terrible representation, and it's going to get into our kids' heads. It did get into our heads. So anyways, all that aside, we don't know what it looks like to truly reverence and, dare I say, fear our husbands, because it is talked about in the Bible. It is talked about that we are to fear them. I know that's opening a whole new can of worms, and I apologize. But we have no idea what that looks like. And the most troubling part about this is that, you know, if you're looking at the metaphor, then we absolutely have no idea how to reverence and fear God. We don't. And on that same end, comparing the two, the way we look at our husbands today, the way that pop culture looks at them, that they're soulmates, that they're best friends, and this is at best, this is the way the world views husbands, is that the wives and the husbands get along like best friends. You know, they're, I don't know, they're their whole world. I mean, you see it all the time in Facebook, and, you know, I married my best friend, you know, going on blah, blah, blah years. You know, this is sort of the ideal that you want to have. Or, you know, at worst, it's the Papa Bear from Berenstain Bears, the bumbling idiot who can't do anything right, and nobody respects him at all. If this is how we view husbands, then how are we viewing God? How in the world are we supposed to fear God and keep his commandments, which is the whole duty of man, as it says in Ecclesiastes? It's troubling. It's very, very troubling. Because we live in such an ungodly culture, a lawless culture. I mean, how do you even begin to understand some of these words? You know, how do you reverence your husband? Well, for one thing, you take what he says with gravity. You take what he says with gravity. If he says something, it's just like training children. You know, how often do we have to repeat ourselves with our children? You know, pick up your toys, and, you know, you turn around and the toys aren't picked up. Okay, well, you know, this is my last chance, you know, pick up your toys. And it's just like our words don't have that gravity, that depth, that weight, you know, that if we speak, you know, we want them to immediately obey. One really good resource that I've found for child training is the Baby Wise method. And they start out as babies, and then they have books all along the way of how to train properly, and they're really good. You can get a lot out of them. But one thing they talk about is being the parents right now. Your children need you to be parents right now. Later on, once they've got the training down and the discipline and you know the foundation set, then you can be their friends. You know, later on in life, that's when the friend part comes in. And the same thing, I think, is probably going to play out the same way with God and with husbanding. And one verse I know that talks about this is in Hosea, when God is talking about Israel and wayward Israel and having to discipline and chastise and completely strip away everything from her. And then he says, then you will no longer call me master, but then you will call me husband. That's the same thing that's going on here. It's all microcosms. It's all pictures of the big picture. So we just get it so backwards today. We want God to be our friend first. You know, what a friend we have in Jesus. And we think maybe we'll learn the respect and the fear later. I don't know. I don't think that happens that way. So, how often does your husband say something to you that you just brush off or forget? Just because you think it's, you know, a suggestion. Maybe he's just trying to be nice. Maybe he's not, you know, wanting to be that harsh tyrant. It's not good house building. You know, that's not building on a strong foundation. That's building on the sand. You know, Jesus in that passage in Luke is saying, you know, this is how you build on a solid foundation, is you listen to my words and you do them. And that's the takeaway. That's the takeaway from the wise man and the wise woman and the foolish man and the foolish woman. There's a lot of stuff that I say in these videos that I sometimes get some feedback about, that I'm not clear enough, or that I kind of do these blanket statements and these big generalizations. And the main audience that I think is out there are women that are already sort of going down this path. But also, you know, just trying to condense it down and make it as coherent as possible is the challenge for a YouTube video. So if I say anything that is raising questions, please contact me. Either just leave a comment. You can email therevoltingman@outlook.com, or Facebook is actually a really good way. I check Facebook every day pretty much, and there's not a whole lot that goes on there as far as the Revolting Man page, but I would be able to respond. If somebody was to send me a Facebook message, I would be able to respond very easily to that, since I'm already checking it. You know, it's Zach who checks the email, so I'm more checking the Facebook, because that's, you know, I'm already doing my own Facebook stuff, so as much as I hate to admit it. But so anyways, if you're interested, there's a playlist for women. I'll put it somewhere around here. Playlist with all the women's videos, if you're interested in hearing more. And I guess that's it. I'm sorry this took so long. I thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.